This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Yes, welcome to Podcast for Antiquities. Tonight we are going through episode 8 of WandaVision, second last episode of the season. I'm your host tonight. My name is Jeff.
This is Harry, once again.
And this is Nathan.
All right. Well, welcome back, guys. We are getting down to it now. This is second last episode of WandaVision. I guess I could ask how you guys are doing, but we've been talking for like 20 minutes already. So
we spent an hour talking about cake already. So it's
yeah, we got that cake situation locked down. We are solid with the cake. Let's talk about WandaVision. So I thought I'd ask you guys, real quick. I mean, we obviously have a deviation from the established format. Any kind of high level thoughts from either of you before we break down the episode?
I don't know. Was there a format with respect to a sitcom for this episode? It just felt I didn't feel like there was.
No. Well, it does sort of pay, I guess, a little bit of tribute to the flashback type of episode, even though these are events we haven't really seen before. But I kind of thought that, this is the greatest hits kind of thing mixed in with, a bit of like Christmas Carol.
Like the clip show.
A little bit of that, although, this is, I guess, maybe more akin to the community clip show where we're seeing stuff that we've never seen before. Even though most of the events in the show we have at least, not most of them we've kind of heard about, I guess, and like just from the previous movies and such. Yeah,
I don't think there's any revelations as far as the material covered in the flashbacks. We know this is her backstory. This is just sort of the details of that. Let's go through the episode here. We ended last week on a bit of a cliffhanger with Wanda coming down to the basement and discovering her neighbor is obviously much more than she seems. So she is I forgot her name already.
Agatha Harkness.
Agatha Harkness. Yeah. So we open on her backstory back in Massachusetts during I presume the Salem witch trial era, and she's betrayed her coven. So let's talk about this. This is some important backstory. Nathan, why don't you lead us off here with Agatha's backstory?
I thought it was kind of neat that they did they pulled a little rope-a-dope because they show like the Salem I can never say the state properly, Massachusetts. I just can never say it properly. And then the year, and you think, here's Agatha. They're going to burn her at the stake, but it's the rest of her coven, I guess. And so it's a neat little reversal. Although I do kind of hate it when like shows and movies kind of go to that well of the Salem witch trials, where like innocent people were killed, like women were killed because there's various things that like, they owned property and like, they had to go. And so I kind of don't dig it when they go to that because I don't know. It's a little yucky, but I mean, whatever. It kind of is what it is, I suppose. But they did. I think they do pull a bit of a reversal very quickly to kind of just sort of play off of your expectations a bit, and then just sort of overall, there's some neat things with the way the scene kind of plays out. Do we want to talk about the whole scene or just sort of the lead up?
We'll talk about the whole scene.
Yeah, because I don't know if we'll ever have, and I don't know. I have no idea if this is the backstory for this character, but I thought it was kind of neat that they didn't necessarily have to spell everything out. It's like she's different than the rest of them. She's like tapped into this new power. And then even though they try and take her out and destroy her, like that ends up kind of being their undoing, that she's able to, I guess the presumption is that she sucks the power out of them.
Yeah, that's what I read out of that.
Yeah. And then I did sort of like they kind of do more of this with the Scarlet Witch thing, but like, I don't know if you noticed, like with her mother cast the spell, she almost has like this magical crown very briefly.
Yeah.
It's kind of blue. Yeah. I was like, okay. Like, no, I bet that's going to come back up a little bit later. Yeah. I mean, overall, it's a good, like they don't drag it out too much, which I appreciate it. So it was, a nice little backstory explainer.
I agree with you on going to the well of the Salem witch trials. It seems a little bit tired, and it almost sanitizes what that actually was.
Yeah.
Like there is no such thing as magic and real witches. They just burned innocent people at the stake, like burned people alive. And I feel like using that as backstory for this or anything, they're not the first show to do it. It's just a little, I don't think tone deaf is the right term for it, but it's a bit tired. It's a bit pedestrian. I feel like they could find another.
Well, a lot of shows just generally use it. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, tone deaf is wrong, but I think it's a little overplayed because it's just like a shorthand, right? For this is the era of witches, and I mean you can sort of squint and look at it as like, well, it's the MCU that has all these superheroes, so in their world maybe blah 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 blah. But you got to know that you're about the 200th TV show to use that shorthand for witches.
And they actually are witches, which almost makes it worse.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know what I mean? Like that means that, they were actually burning real witches at the stake at this time. Like there were real witches. I know we're going into a little bit more than the show. We're thinking about it more than the show did, but I feel like that's a problem sometimes with the show, is that we're thinking about it more than they did, and we're not thinking all that much. Like we didn't have to go far to figure this out. I just kind of wish that they had thought it through a little bit more. Harry, do you have any opening thoughts for the opening scene here?
I dug it. I don't know. I think you guys are thinking too much about it. You're talking about shorthand. I agree. I don't see any issues here. I think it was, if we're talking about in our modern times, if they went back to the well and it's like a bunch of men burning Agatha, that'd be a different story. It's witch on witch action here, and I didn't have any issue with it. You got 5 minutes to tell kind of somewhat of a story for Agatha, give her some backstory. Whether it's shorthand or not, you got to get it done fast to move the episodes along. It's the second last episode of this miniseries. I thought it was fine.
And it was the longest episode. Like this is a 45-minute episode. I think this is the longest one. They stuffed a lot into this episode. But yeah, we'll come to modern times. Wanda's in the basement. We get some bullshit about runes, so Wanda can't use her powers, and then we go on a trip down memory lane. So
actually, wait 1 second though, before we move past that. I did think that was interesting that they recontextualized her powers as magic. Because this is the first indication of that. Because it also seemed odd that Agatha was like a little, because she was questioning her and thought that, like, do you not see like what this room kind of is? And so I thought it was interesting because I couldn't quite tell if she maybe was genuinely confused or knew that Wanda didn't understand the nature of her power or even what she was. But I thought that was a neat recontextualization of her.
I thought it's good because the whole episode she's trying to figure out who exactly Wanda is.
Yeah, exactly.
In the sense that is she, a witch, like how did she, she's trying to gain access to her scale of power. She finally figures out it has to do with an Infinity Stone. But at the beginning of this episode, she was pretty much expecting that Wanda's just like her. And she's trying to figure out just how could Agatha do what she did to this town at this scale? Because it doesn't seem that Agatha knew how to do something like this. That's why she was attracted to power. Yeah, that's why she's
because of the scale of it. Because I can't remember if it was in this scene or if it was later, because she talks about how, like, just like the overall scope of what Wanda was doing to the town, where it's like you have like full on automation, spontaneous creation and stuff like that. And so it seemed as though Agatha was like, I've been doing this for 400 years. I can't, like, it's like all I can, and she kind of did some stuff with like the insect bird. It's like, she's basically saying all I've got is parlor tricks to show for it. And you just kind of like swept in. Cause also like Wanda would be like a relatively public figure, right? So I thought that was kind of odd that like she wouldn't kind of know what Wanda was, I guess. But again, I thought it was, cause
she would have seen Wanda's powers and assumed it was magic. Like that was what her context was.
I guess she would have sensed it.
She wouldn't have. Nobody knew that it came from the Infinity Stone, right? I assume that wouldn't be common knowledge.
No.
I don't. That's hard to say. I mean, they want to like play down the part where she signed up for a terrorist organization and got special abilities, right? In whatever the press briefer was when they introduced her as the newest member of the Avengers. Her and Robot Man, this is the new crew, and we'll just play down that Hydra part. It's almost like if you signed up for like ISIS And you're like, but like we'll just ignore that.
I mean, she said, you mentioned it there, like what seemed to be of the most interest to her was, well, I think she said magic on autopilot. She had this whole town, and it's like she didn't need to consciously control everything. She could set the stage, and then it would all play out by itself. And that was, for Agatha, like that power was, she had no concept of it. But yeah, it seemed like she was assuming it was magic, because she asked her a few times, like, when, for example, when we go back to her childhood there and they're hiding under the bed and that Stark Industries missile had shot into their apartment there. And then she's like, oh, did you use like a probability matrix spell or
probability
something?
Hex, which is,
That's
kind of like the term they used for her powers in the comic book. Or they used to, I think, like
but she's just like, nah, it just was a dud. It just didn't go off. Like there was no magic. But
we should go to the beginning of. Oh, we're kind of getting off track. I only just brought it up as just like thought it was interesting that they're kind of not exactly retconning her powers, but just sort of giving us like some more context around them, right?
Well, I guess we'll come back to it a bit here, and we'd mentioned on the show, so we can go back to the first flashback.
Just before you go on, Jeff, I think the more interesting point out of all of this, it seems that Agatha had nothing to do with the creation and the stability and continuation of this, what was going on in Westview.
Correct.
That's right.
At least
so I think that's the implication.
Yeah.
So every theory, and even I was on that train where like it was a combination of Wanda doing this and somehow some other outside influence. And that is not the case. Like just Agatha, like, I mean, we'll see kind of what happens, but Agatha was like, I mean, she's sort of manipulating events within the hex, but she's not powering, like she's trying to understand how it even works, which I think is that's really interesting.
Now, is it just, like, is she already there? Like just coincidentally, this super powerful 500-year-old witch is...
No, I think it shows that she just came there.
But you mean like was she always like living in that house next door?
Yeah. Well, where did she come from?
No, I think she turned the owner into that rabbit and moved in.
Okay.
Must be something along those lines.
No, that's as good an explanation as any.
Yeah, that's who. Who does she always say? Like her husband, the husband we never see. Is it Ned? I wonder if that's the
something
rabbit.
like that. It could be the rabbit.
Is it the rabbit?
I would assume that'd be funny. I'd assume so.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't think. Yeah, no, I think that what happened was that like it was like just when Wanda created like this new Westview out of like over this town. I think that Agatha was immediately drawn to it. Just like, it's just kind of like this big, it's kind of like from Endgame when they, like Rocket Raccoon is like showing off, here's a map and here's where the snap happened and there's energy and stuff like that. I imagine there's like sort of like a magical version of that magic people use and like, oh, hey, there's this big thing of energy and Agatha just like went over to it.
Yeah, that would make sense, I guess. Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll find out more.
Maybe she just hangs out in Jersey. I don't know.
Yeah, she just hangs out in Jersey. No witch trials in Jersey.
No, she just went to a Devils game. That's all.
Because, the Devils.
Yeah.
Ayo.
They need magic just to lace up their skates, man.
Oof, boy, they need magic to exist. They're the Westview of the National Hockey League right there. They're just a figment of somebody's imagination.
That's right.
All right, so let's talk about the first flashback. So Agatha takes Wanda on a tour of her life. So we go back to Sokovia. She's a young girl. I think we said this on the show before. I think I had expressed a theory about the sitcoms. So her dad's selling bootleg DVDs of old sitcoms. And that's what they do as a family, is they sit down and have TV night and watch that. I thought that was nice context. It was nice to see one of our theories somewhat validated. So that was cool. But they got blowed up real good, which is a real shame. Her and Pietro survive. I mean, that's quick. I mean, there's not a whole lot there other than just sort of the context for her sitcom affinity. You guys have any comments on the first flashback?
No.
And obviously the Stark Industries missile.
You already mentioned that and Dud. And they're just showing now all the, all those commercials, how they kind of like the relation to those commercial flashbacks almost. So,
yeah, I did think it was weird. Maybe not weird, because I guess that like there are parts of the world where this kind of nonsense will go on where there's like a street battle happening outside. I mean, I guess that's why the bomb was dropped on them. I did think it was because there had been a theory floating that the two actors in the commercials would turn out to be the parents, and that was not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I thought it, because I thought it was like, well, it's so obvious who those two actors will turn out to be.
That would have been
And no,
interesting. I would have liked that. That would have been cool.
Yeah, and it's strange that it wasn't that. Because like it was always consistently the same actors, and her parents end up like looking like a couple of hipsters from like Seattle or something like that. The one thing I did kind of read, we don't have to kind of go too much into this, but the episode, because they watch an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show, which we kind of knew was like the inspiration for the first show, or the first episode of WandaVision. And I'd read an interesting article just for a little bit of context, but like the episode that Wanda wants to watch is season 2, episode 21. The episode is It May Look Like a Walnut. And it's apparently like this really weird episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I guess it shows up in some of the best like sitcom episodes of all time, because it was so out there, where it has something to do with, I don't know if it's like a dream, but the whole episode's like a nod to the Twilight Zone, because like everyone like eats walnuts or something like that. Like you can kind of see it. Like if you go back and you sort of rewatch it, like it's like, why is it going to have like a walnut? And everyone's kind of acting like really kind of odd and stuff like that. And so it was interesting that they picked that one out as far as the one that she wanted. I'm sure it's just more like a little bit of a nod to like the surrealness of the world within the Dick Van Dyke Show. And then like, oh, that's kind of like a cool nod to what we're doing here. Right. So anyways, I just thought I'd bring it up.
I didn't even think to go back and look at the episode.
Neither did I. I mean, I did notice that Mary Tyler Moore is the wife, and she's like putting a walnut in his pocket. I'm like, what kind of fucking show is this? I've never seen the Dick Van Dyke Show. I'd seen pictures of it and stuff. It only just kind of came up when I was reading an article about the show, this episode later on, that people had picked that up. It's weird because I never grew up watching that show. I just feel like it was never on. That might be different for Americans. I think maybe it was just a show that was just on more. Just sort of the way Golden Girls was just sort of always on for us. But for other people, it was the Dick Van Dyke Show. So,
I feel like you could be right. It's so old.
Yeah, it's two different eras.
Yeah, and even for these characters, like this, they're watching it on DVD. So I'm assuming that this flashback takes place, the early to mid 2000s, right? I'm putting 2003 as like my year on this flashback. For her parents, that show would have been super fucking old. It just...
I think this is more maybe, Feige and the writers nodding to what they watched, if they're a little older.
But they're not that old. For Feige, this show would be way old.
So I'll add a little bit of context to this. This article that I read, it was actually by the same author who had penned something a few weeks back, where people thought that a lot of people had sort of a similar theory, like, oh, maybe Wanda just grew up watching a lot of sitcoms, but they thought just based on her age that it'd be weird that she would have been watching Dick Van Dyke, the Dick Van Dyke Show. But this person who had written the article, she's like, well, I'm from Eastern Europe, and we were like 20, 30 years behind, like on just the shows. And so you would just watch a bunch of like old, weird American crap, like old black and white shows. Right, especially
that rang true for me. That's what I thought too. It was like, well, it's Eastern Europe,
and that's the thing. Even though like it was,
but they had the DVD. Like it would have.
That's the thing. It was DVDs.
Yeah,
right?
Like if you've got the DVD, you're not 30 years behind. If you're watching reruns on TV,
but it was that's the thing that was funny about it, was that it was a mix of like Dick Van Dyke Show and Malcolm in the Middle. And like Bewitched, and I think like Who's the Boss?
I think this is just them trying to honor the sitcom format.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything more than just kind of that. And I just think that that's just what it was, because it was Eastern Europe, and it's just like it's whatever you can just kind of get your hands on is sort of what it was, because anything that was bootleg was sort of taboo, right? They're in the middle of a war. Like the guy's trying to make a buck. I think we're dwelling much.
Well, hey, we got to. What else are we doing? I did like the scene where the mom looks out the window and there's a battle going on outside. Basically, I'm like, it's terrifying, but the people who live in these places where there's conflict. You're still in your house, like you're still in your apartment. Like, what are you supposed to do, right? They're like, all right, well, let's put the TV on and hope we don't get bombed tonight. It was a good scene.
I've known people from places like Ukraine and like other places, like I'm trying to think, like Moldova and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, sometimes you're just like you're having dinner you're watching TV and there's like people shooting at each other outside,
Yeah.
and not over like an argument. It's just like, there's like a
We're-
bit of a
we live in a
battle.
spoiled society, We're a very cushy society. My sister did a lot of work in Kabul in those compounds there, and being protected, and bombs and other shit are going off, even if you're just having lunch and dinner, and it's just that's outside the walls. So that's just part of life for people overseas, right? In certain areas of the world.
Yeah.
It's sad, but that's just what it is.
Yeah, so the obviously Wanda's parents, they don't make it, and we go forward to Wanda's experience at the Hydra compound there with the Mind Stone, Loki's scepter, so the experiments on her. So I wanted to ask you guys a question here. So I was wondering if they were intimating, I think Agnes was, but I was wondering if the show is intimating that Wanda was magic and that the Mind Stone augmented her powers. And the reason I asked that, so there's two pieces there, was after Agnes asked her if she used the probability hex, but she's like basically referenced the total destruction of her apartment. And, you guys are safe. So, the suggestion there that there was something to her. And then when she's in the room with the scepter, the Mind Stone seems to take to her in a special way. So was there something going on there? What do you guys think?
Yes. I think she's either magic or special or susceptible to magic. That I think they made a comment that more people, most people in this experiment did not survive, or something along those lines, or no one else survived. So
it's like, and that was, I believe, even from like Age of Ultron, they basically say that they are the only two survivors of the experiment, which is weird because then that would also imply, because I'm with Harry, where she must have had some sort of latent ability, and that the Mind Stone activated her, which would also sort of imply that her brother was sort of the same as well.
Right. Yeah.
We might know more next week on this, but I'm assuming that's the case. I mean, at the end, they call, she finally gets the name branded officially here as Scarlet Witch. So I don't know what that means in terms of the witch, backstory, what that means to Agatha or Agnes here, but it's got to be something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It feels like it does need to be something. I hope they don't drop it. I'm worried that they will drop it, not address it, but we'll see. There isn't a whole lot going on there. We just see her interaction with the stone. I did want to bring this up. I don't remember when in the episode it takes place, but we find that Agnes was the one who, like, she was Pietro, like her version of Pietro, right?
Yeah.
She created that.
Oh, yes. So, you're right.
So what did you guys think of that revelation?
Did she say anything? Like, what was the plan? Like, what was the motive for her to do that?
I think just to gain her confidence, somebody she could trust. That was the impression I got. Because she said, I was the eyes and ears. Like she did it to watch her.
But she was already watching, right? As the neighbor.
Yeah, but I feel like she tried to take a more intimate role in her family. Like her brother was somebody that she trusts, somebody she would talk to, as opposed to the neighbor next door. I that's how I understood the motivation.
It's a fine motivation. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and it actually gives some context to the Halloween episode when Pietro is like interrogating her about like, hey, how did you do all this sort of thing? But she was talking more about like, well, but it's not, because I think she actually does call him like Pietro or something like that, like a dumb name like that. Basically saying, well, it's not your brother. She's like, well, because his body's on another continent full of holes. So I forget, I didn't write it down. I'm surprised I didn't, but like she kind of, I don't know, a bunch of like comic booky, crystalline, blah, blah, blah nonsense sort of thing. So it's just so strange that they just sort of gloss over this whole fact that they used this other actor that we as the audience are like can read into like so much of it. And then it's like, nah, but it's really nothing.
Yeah, in the end, it's a Marvel shock scene is what it is. Marvel shock / twist scene.
Maybe we'll get more, because we never got any resolution from the last episode in regards to Pietro, because he finds Monica right at that, like at the stinger at the end of the episode. So I think we'll get more Pietro. But I think it's kind of weird that they just sort of like, she's not like, he's from another dimension. None of that stuff. She's just like, it's just this other thing I just created. But again, it's sort of weird within the context of the show that Wanda kind of accepted him as her brother.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
She seems to have like blinders on. I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but
a little bit, but it's sort of, again, it was sort of strange because I could never tell, like throughout every episode of the show, if Wanda she was the one kind of playing along. Or because it almost seemed as though like and that's why I was kind of thought that it wasn't all her creating all of this, because she also seemed kind of confused as to what was going on. The first episode, even she didn't really know the backstory. It wasn't just Vision. Like, she just couldn't come up with anything. She still says, I don't know how I did any of this. And then she just sort of accepts Pietro. She's like, well, you look different. What happened to your accent, kind of thing? But not be like, well, you're not. You're not my brother. I mean, you're not. It's not that they just recast another actor that kind of looks like what's his face. Like they get this whole other guy. So it's a little confusing. Maybe they'll clear up more of that next episode. Maybe not. Or maybe just like Harry said, she just has blinders on and she's just sort of accepting it because she wanted to, because that's what she needed.
We'll see. I'm not convinced that Marvel's doing a multiverse thing. I think they might just be fucking with us. I don't think that it's in their best interest to introduce a multiverse for a few reasons. One being DC is doing it, I think, to poor effect. And I think it's too confusing for the general audience. So I'd be glad that they are discarding those elements. But we'll see what happens. That's just kind of what I think. So, okay. Shit, where were we?
Other flashback scenes, I think. We did the parents one and the Stark bomb. Then we did the stone.
The Mind Stone.
The Mind Stone one. What's the next
one? One other thing we kind of missed with the Mind Stone. I mean, it's real quick, but they kind of show like that vision of the Scarlet Witch costume a little bit. Yeah. But then later they show her, again, another TV thing where she's in the Hydra base bunker and she's watching I think it's the Brady Bunch.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't the episode where, like, I think it's the third episode where she gives birth, but Vision is like putting a diaper on the doll?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Like the same doll in the TV show that she's watching.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at all.
No.
Okay. So it was, it's like, wait, because I remember, like, wasn't there a doll before? I went back and have a look, but yeah, so.
So the next flashback is her at the Sword compound, right? That's the next one. So yeah, this is where we see her storming.
No, hang on. You skipped over where she's in Avengers
with Vision at the Avengers.
Oh, at the Avengers compound.
Civil War time frame.
Right.
Yeah.
Right after Age of Ultron, right? Yeah.
I think it's directly after Age of Ultron.
Yeah, because she's still mourning her brother.
Yeah, and her hair is the color from. It was a hair thing where I think she changed her hair color later, Civil War, and she still had the darker hair from Age of Ultron. And she still, because she even says like, well, my brother is dead or something to that effect, and I'm in a new country. So I think that's right after Ultron.
That's right.
Before Civil.
I like this scene. I thought this was good, heartfelt, and I like the joke that was just the Malcolm in the Middle show there where Bryan Cranston gets buried under his handiwork. It was very funny. It was good. It actually was the only time I laughed the whole episode.
I also thought it was, again, like a little, because it was, I like Vision's reaction to it, where it's like, what does he say? It's something like, the injury it's funny, right? And I thought it was a bit of it was
something like, because it's like he's been maimed or something like that. It was more serious than an injury. It was like he's been maimed or something like that. And she's like, it's not that kind of show.
But I did think that was also, it was neat because remember, like I think it was the Family Ties opener, maybe it was the third episode where he's putting together the swing set and it falls down.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was like a little bit of kind of like wink and a nod to like both of those a little bit. Like the interaction between the two. I mean, man, talk about a downer, because like she's in a dark place and he's trying. So I mean, I thought it was like a really like dark scene, but like a sweet scene as well, without being.
Yeah, it is. But she's mourning, right? So this whole thing's about her. As we've this is another thing that we've kind of nailed on day one. This is just her dealing with grief.
Yeah.
And this is just more scenes of her dealing with grief and how she attached to Vision during this vulnerable time and something that she needed. And I don't know, it's interesting, did Vision need this? But that's a separate question. But I guess he did.
It's also more character development than either of them got in.
It is. And this is not to take away from anything that Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen have. They have good chemistry. We've talked about that. More scenes between them is good. But I'm finding that I wish that they took a bit more time on their relationship. We're 8 episodes in, and I thought it started off strong in the first 2 episodes. and now we've deviated a bit. This is a separate topic altogether, and you have to, because there's a bigger story to tell here, and I'm still enjoying everything, but I wish so this scene's good. I just wish there was more of this. Where you could kind of really get a bit more of the feels. It's kind of funny, as you guys were talking about the scene, and again, I don't want to segue too much, but do you remember that episode in TNG where Data had the girlfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
great episode.
Yeah, it's a good episode. And in that, 40 minutes there, you really get some feels for Data and her. And these are two characters that we've never seen interact before on the show. But here we've seen Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen consistently interact with each other. The scene's good, but it's not as powerful as it needs to be. And I'm hoping that next week's episode gives us that emotional punch on whatever happens. Because if it doesn't, I think I'm going to have a big problem. I feel like I'm missing something here between these two now. 8 episodes in, it started really strong, and now I'm thinking a little bit the opposite way. I don't know about you guys, but it's just because we're focusing on so many other things.
I think you brought up a really important point. I'm going to agree with you completely, because your example from TNG, that's a really, really good one, because if you watch TNG, like, it's its own show, obviously, and they have many, many seasons to tell their stories, but they stick to their format. Like, TNG sticks to their format, and they know how to work different types of stories into their show. And I think one of the WandaVision exposes a weakness in Marvel. It seems to me that they don't know how to tell a story outside of the Marvel framework. With TNG, you have the TNG framework, and they know how to tell stories within that framework that work. And that episode you brought up is a great example, because it's very different than anything they've done, but it's still within the show. It makes sense. It's part of the DNA. But with WandaVision, every time they need to advance the plot of the series, they have to step outside of the format that they chose for the show. Every sitcom episode, they don't really do a goddamn thing to advance anything. We don't learn anything in any sitcom-centric episode. Not really. We get little tidbits here and there. But when they're it feels like when the writers, the producers are okay, well, we need to advance the story. How do we do that? Well, let's just do a story. Now we got to go outside of the bubble. And it's just standard Marvel fare. And an episode like this, this is, I think, the third episode that isn't a sitcom format. And we only have 9 episodes, and they don't, and it's almost, if this was a Marvel movie, this would be like the mushy second act where we have the exposition and all the bullshit, where there's no action or anything entertaining happening. They have no idea how to tell these stories outside of the regular format. And that's a real disappointment to me.
I think we need to see how it wraps up next week to kind of make a final judgment call on what you're saying, Jeff.
Although I think I kind of agree with Jeff in the sense that I feel it's leaning towards that, because I think they're also a little bit hamstrung by the fact that they have chosen to create this mystery show around why is it a sitcom, right? And then it's just, so the first couple episodes, you can kind of get away with it. Well, it's just sort of being it's weird, and you have these characters that in a different context, and this is unnatural in some way. And I think actually before they introduced any of the outside world, they were they were just building mystery. But then when it sort of came time to advance the story more, it was less. I wouldn't say it's less. I mean, we did get other stuff where Vision is he sees the email, he has the interaction with his coworker and snaps him out of the mystical funk, and then he has the argument with Wanda. Those are smaller moments, I guess. Whereas the first 2 episodes are just sort of the establishment. So it's fine that they're not like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure I'm quite as harsh in it. I mean, I think it's a valid way of looking at it. But at the same time, it's also a mystery show. It's not necessarily about well, what's the relationship between these 2 characters? Even though I wish we had more of that. I don't know. Maybe it's just what you want to get out of the show. And for me, it's I like some mystery stuff. I like some superhero stuff. The relationship stuff, it's well, it's already just kind of there. And this episode's just a big information dump.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, Harry's probably right. We need to see the final episode before we can make a judgment on the whole thing.
That's true.
I just feel you guys remember, watching, we did our reviews of Star Trek Picard. It's you got 9 episodes. You can't, does it make sense to waste any time. I know we got some backstory here, but we knew all this already. Did we not?
Most of it, yeah.
So why are we doing a whole, like, we have 9 episodes and there's so much untapped potential, so much material out there, like so many cool things they could have done, because they've done some really awesome things with the format, and we're doing a clip show. It's Shades of Grey is what we're doing.
Well, that's it's funny because it's also part of it's also part of the format. So it's hard to, if you're saying stick to the format. The clip show is part of the format.
But that's why I said,
but
like,
they should have done it in the format of a clip show. Like, this is
that's why I said at the top.
Yes.
It's like it's a bit of an homage to the clip show, but it's not really a clip show because we're not seeing clips of anything from the WandaVision show. It's just
they
stuff
they should have done the flashbacks as sitcoms.
Yeah, they should have.
Right? That would have been great. Like, and as different sitcoms. Like, that would have been, then it would have been gold.
And they should have named it Shades of Grey. Exactly. The episode should have been called Shades of Grey. Again.
Shades of Grey. That would have been great.
I would have been running.
No, they should. No, if they do it like if they did like a more traditional clip show, and then the title of the episode should be "The Writers Were on Strike."
That would have been good.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking because I saw the title of the episode. I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. But they didn't do that, which was real shame. All right, so let's get back to the show. So the next flashback is her at Sword trying to recover Vision's body. So her first meeting with the director of Sword, and we see Vision's pretty much fucked up, all dismantled. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, did we not see in a previous episode that somebody had watched a video of her supposedly stealing the body?
I'm assuming, yes. I'm assuming that Hayward has manipulated some video to make it look like.
Okay.
So
that's what I thought too. So I just wanted to check.
Hang on. So it was it's the 4th episode when we finally come out of Westview, right? It shows like Monica's story. Maybe it was the episode after that. But yeah, Hayward shows it. Doesn't really manipulate it though. He just kind of shows her, it like carefully edited so to show Wanda walking, like using her magic to open the door, and then busting some glass and then flying down the room. And then it just cuts out from there.
Dramatization may not have happened. But, yeah. I don't know if you remember that one from The Simpsons with Rock Bottom with the Homer, but that's all good. I'm laughing because I can picture it.
I don't know. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Dramatization.
What is
may
this?
Not have happened.
What is this? What is this Simpsons you reference? I don't.
At any rate, but yeah,
you have failed, but that's okay.
Yeah, we did sort of see like the security footage of this incident, but it sort of left out some of the critical parts where they actually kind of let her in, like they yeah, you can come in, but she opened the door on her own, and even though she busted the glass, she didn't actually leave with Vision's body, right? They just cut all that out. Like, it made it seem as though she, like, attacked the facility is what it was.
Right, that's what it looked like, yeah.
And that's also why, because I also had theorized that she knew who Hayward was when they met, because she knew him by name. Because she does call him by name when she, like, pulls that drone out of the hex there at one point, so.
But that was the first time she met him, when she came in, right?
Yeah.
Well, that we see here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So she doesn't steal Vision's body. So she gets back. That was the last flashback, right? And we see that she creates this version of Vision. Well, she
makes a little drive through the real West.
She drives through the town, which is
did you guys find that weird? Did you find
so?
Weird that, like, just seeing, like, I guess an Avenger just like driving like a sedan just through a small Jersey town. Like, it was just, I don't know why, I just thought it was odd.
Yeah, it was a little odd. Actually, I thought that too when she gets into the car and it's just this it's like a Kia.
It's a Buick
Forte or something. I don't know what it was. It's just some bullshit compact car. It is funny, but she's got to get her, like, I like when they do stuff like that. She's not Tony. Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, I thought, well, I mean, maybe at short distances, I don't know. I just thought it was
she's
just
not Tony Stark. Like, Tony Stark is all about, like, flying around, like, I'm Iron Man and stuff. And
but she's like, got the keys and, like, it beeps, and then she's just, like, driving around town, just checking her or like doing her shoulder checks and stuff. I don't know why. I just thought it was so
this way,
funny
like,
to see a superhero doing
could,
like the most pedestrian of things.
Yeah, exactly. I like it when they do that. I mean, I figure like I could run around I could run to the grocery store, but that's a lot of work. I imagine flying's a lot more work than running. I'll drive. It's a couple. You know what I mean? I feel like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same, flying and running.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I just wondered why Vision decided to buy a property in this fucking bullshit town in New Jersey.
It could have
what
been,
an asshole.
Yeah, no. It could have been too that it was like the town was maybe a little bit better because in theory he would have bought it 5 years prior, and maybe just in the 5 years of like after the snap, it just turned into a dump.
Okay. Yeah,
maybe.
That checks out.
I don't know. That's
actually
kind of
that does check out. That does check out because it's
like what an asshole.
I just figure he's so clueless. I figure like his AI, like, come on, man, New Jersey, but the Avengers compound's right there.
Yeah,
so
the Avengers compound's right there, and I think Tony Stark gave him some New Jersey Devil tickets, season pass. There you go.
Which is why they moved so far out of the city. Because, I'm not going to a Devil's game.
No, they're smart. They'll fly to the Devil's game.
If there's like a scene where he's like wearing like a hockey jersey at a game.
That would have been great.
Like, because I always did find it funny when he
No.
They were hired as security.
The face paint? Like David Putty.
Oh, and the face paint.
Devil's paint?
Yeah, there you go. They were hired as security to manage the shootings in front of the Devil's Stadium, so.
Oh boy.
There you go. Which is a real problem from what I hear.
Yeah, but who gives a shit? It's the Devils. Oh, man. Where were we here? All right, so she's in the town. Yeah, and that's, and then she, you know what actually I like? She looks at the deed, and it's like, Wanda Maximoff and the Vision, like as the owners.
Are you serious? That's funny. And the Vision.
That was good.
That's
the Vision.
The Vision.
The Vision is his name.
They've done that before, too, when they had Civil War, when they had like the Accords, and they would have like the contract part where they have everyone's name and then you're supposed to sign it and then it's just like the Vision, which so I thought that was kind of funny as well. Cause then I thought like, who was the realtor in that exchange? Right. And then he had to go to like a lawyer and everything like that.
Did they have to get him a green card? Did they have to give him like a social security number? I assume they must have, right?
I would assume that Tony Stark just said, hey, I got this synthezoid here. Yeah, he needs a social security number, social security number.
Needs a driver's license.
A driver's license, birth certificate. Here's $1 billion. I'm Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Yeah.
I want to see that scene. That's the scene I want to see.
Also needs like an income because otherwise where's the money come from?
Well, I assume that the Avengers are on salary, right? Like they get paid, like Tony Stark pays the Avengers.
Yeah, I don't think they have to worry about bills. Their accounts are already loaded.
They must have money to some spending around or throwing around money, right? So
yeah, some walking around money.
Walking around money. That's what I was trying to find. Yeah.
Should have pulled out like
Vision's
the Bat card or Avengers card, just like Batman.
Well, that I mean, like more like. What about Vision's like a
sweaters?
Like
the corporate card. That's right.
I mean, obviously, it's not paying him very much. Like Wanda's shitty sedan there, but Vision's got all those. He's got to buy pants and stuff. And
I always assume that he just like manifested the clothes that he wore.
Yeah, I guess that would make more sense. I guess it just felt like he's such his clothes. Yeah, I guess he must manifest them. I don't know. It's hard to say
because the cape comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, the cape comes out of nowhere. That's a good point.
I feel like that was Ultron's plan all along. He's like, I just want this body so I can make all these sweaters. Just wear sweaters all day.
Sweaters.
That was Ultron's master plan.
It's a very
and then he would have called himself Robert California.
Yeah, it's a very James Spader situation there. Like I could see him wearing those clothes. Paul Bettany just stole James Spader's wardrobe. What an asshole. Okay, what sets her off? Because she's on the property.
Oh, she's grief, man. She sees this was for us to live in together and grow old together, and then she just loses it.
She just loses it. Okay, right.
Well, because she just saw the body, right?
Right.
And she's like, the deed. Right. She says like I can't because she tried to like almost revive him like right there in Sword. Mm-hmm. It seemed as though, and then that didn't happen. Drives to the spot, looks at the deed. I don't remember if it had like a little heart on it, but definitely said to grow. I think it did, yeah. And then it says to grow old and together, and then it's just too much for her to take, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's the start. Like she creates So this is interesting. We see her creation of this vision. So what she's been dealing with isn't, she never took the body. This isn't the vision. This is her manifestation of it. And yet it seems to be somewhat autonomous. I don't know.
This really threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, because they say that, well, she took the body. I'm like, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that, that she was able to kind of manifest it, to me,
he's part of this fabric. I mean, I think we all know where it's going based on the last shot. You saw the after credits scene, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we all know where it's going to go, or we can guess. But yeah, this vision cannot exist outside of this matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but no, I was surprised to see that it wasn't
go ahead.
the physical.
Yes, I was well, especially because they sort of establish, as you said, that he has autonomy, right? Because, well, I guess he's the only person there that's not. I don't know. I mean, like, to kind of make sense of it is odd. But then, as to why he doesn't quite obey what Wanda wants the way other people in the Hex do is sort of strange. So he's got to be more than just like a pure illusion of sorts, right?
Yeah. Well, I wonder if it goes like, because we are always we have postulated previously that she reanimated the body using the power, like her powers, which come from the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
Which is his source of his power, right? So, but it's kind of still that. Like how they filmed that scene. He comes out, like she creates Vision out of herself, out of her power, which is the Mind Stone. So like, it's like she has, I don't know, to me it felt like she has his consciousness stored like somehow in herself because she has that power, like she has the Mind Stone.
Although he didn't have any memories,
you know?
That's
true.
Right.
That's a good point.
But it's almost like she doesn't either when she's on the inside either, though.
I think that's just denial. That's denial. That's cognitive dissonance or something along those lines.
No, but it's odd though, because like at times she doesn't seem to have any memories either, but then
selective memory, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like but then like she knew what the drone was and then took it out and threw it at Hayward. Yeah, so it's like little things like that where it's not clear, and I'm okay with the ambiguity of it. Like, I don't think we need to like, oh, in this episode she said this, and well, in that episode she said that. But we keep saying like her powers come from the Mind Stone, but it's actually, again, I mean, I'm really more on like kind of what Harry is saying is that she had powers and the Mind Stone either enhanced them or just brought them to the front or something like that, and that's where Agatha's. Because that's also too where Agatha is like doing the slow clap audience stance, and she's like, "Well, I can't remember what she says, but that's what she's kind of after. It's like, how did you do this?" And like, so she's like, what? Basically, she's interested in the fact that Wanda created this like whole other person who isn't an illusion.
That's right.
Yeah, that's where the episode formally ends, I think, right?
No, I think that's where the flashbacks end, and then Agatha, then it goes back to the basement, and Wanda, back to the present in Westview, and she's Wanda snaps out of it and says, "Well, where's the kids?" And
where's the kids, right?
Yeah, and then, which is an interesting thing because I mean, these kids are also to me imaginary unless something else is presented next week. That's what she's holding on to, and then she sees them held captive outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Agatha.
Right.
There is an element. I don't know how much they'll bring this in from the comic book, but there is something in one of the, like in a very old story with Wanda's children, they were an illusion or something like that. I forget exactly. I think then later on that was retcon. That's not quite what it was, but I thought that was just sort of knowing a little bit of that history there. I thought that was sort of interesting, knowing now kind of where a Vision was sort of created. Like, well, where do the kids come from, and are they real? Because I also believe that in the comic book, Agatha helped Wanda not go completely crazy when her children like disappeared, I guess, when it turned out they were illusions. Something like that. They might be doing a little bit of reversal here on that sort of idea.
Or they made us not exist after this is all done.
Maybe Wanda will just wake up in bed and it's like, oh, this is a bad dream all along.
Well, it's kind of interesting.
She'll wake up next to Bob Newhart and...
well, have you guys seen the latest Wonder Woman?
Yes.
No.
So it's almost like, I wonder, I'm not going to spoil it for you, Jeff. I'm almost wondering if the ending of this is almost like a similar theme and an ending for what Wanda will have to do next week.
That would be weird if they turn out kind of... So I know what you're saying, Harry, and it would be odd. And I did have the same thought.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for the outside of that conversation. I just keep waiting for it to show up where I don't have to pay $30, $20 for whatever.
It's 20 now. My kids twisted
Yeah.
my arm.
Yeah.
The two girls who can't
No.
wait to see it. So
I'm not judging anybody for it. I'm just like, with my luck, I'll rent it. And then like the week after that, like now available for streaming, Wonder Woman 1984. So
yeah, I know. You're probably 1 month away from renting it for $5 still.
well, that'd be.
We should do that one on the show. But anyways,
we should do that one on the show. We're going to have to do our 12 episode miniseries on Zack Snyder's Justice League in a month.
Yeah, I have no idea how
about
we're going to get
2
access
weeks?
to it. So
2 weeks, baby.
No.
2 weeks, baby.
You have to say it right.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
That's right. You have to have a standard on this show, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I know. What a break in the format. We got to have high standards. All right. So the kids are held hostage and that's that for them, right? Like that's all we see.
I think she just says, then drops a name, the Scarlet Witch. You are the Scarlet Witch.
Oh yeah, you're the Scarlet Witch because she can create. Yeah, right. Well, she has a name now, so good for her. It's only been 6 years. It is kind of funny that they never gave her a name until now.
That was a legal thing.
Are you sure?
Yeah, like when
they can use the character's real name, all of her powers, their likeness and everything, but they can't use her superhero name?
Could not use her or Quicksilver's superhero names, nor refer to them as mutants. But they could have the same, like roughly the same powers and like kind of everything else. And that was part of like the weird deal share between Fox and Marvel Studios. I would love to see what those legal contracts actually look like, but like how you have access to like those characters and stuff like that. Cause then there's also, anyways, I just think it'd be funny, like that type of minutia would have to be in a contract somewhere, right? So,
yeah, you're reading that contract. Like in 100 years, be reading this contract. What is this?
Yeah, that is the reason why they've never called her Scarlet Witch, but now that they have access to use them. So
okay, well that's good. All right, so that's the episode, and then we get to the after credits scene. So Sword has rebuilt Vision, for like the actual Vision. His body's been reconstructed, and they took. Okay, so is that the drone?
Yes.
Okay, so
they tried to, like, Monica had piloted it and Hayward tried to shoot her with the drone, and then she like is dragging it out of the hex, and it still had like her like energy, I guess, or whatever.
Right. Okay.
Because it had that weird glow to it when she kind of threw it at them, and then I guess it still just kind of retained it, which is I believe is what we're seeing in that one shot.
Yeah. Right. That's what it looks like. Because he says that we just needed power from a source or words to that effect. Right. All right. Well, that means that Vision, the body of Vision, is functional. I guess we're going to see a big throwdown. Well, I guess we'll see. And that's the end of the episode. So I guess we can wrap it up, Harry. Why don't you, I'll give you the last word, Harry. Nathan, why don't you start us off? What are your overall thoughts on this episode and, any other, final thoughts or predictions or whatever going into the ninth episode?
So a couple things. Although I don't think it was necessarily a bad episode, I do feel a little frustrated when shows kind of do something like it. I don't know how much this truly advanced the overall story. It was neat to see some of some of the backstory to her character, things we'd only heard referenced in the movies, and this was also kind of this is my frustration with other shows I like a nice tight show because I don't like a bunch of wasted episodes, but then they still seem to kind of go out of the way to like waste a whole episode. Like you got 9, use it or make 10 episodes or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was a bad episode. It's just a little frustrating. They kind of do that sort of thing. Some of my other thoughts, Agatha, White Vision. I bought the Funko Pops today. They're looking pretty sexy. I gotta say. The Agatha one's actually cool. And then the only other thing I thought, I'm not sure if you guys had read this, a while ago, Paul Bettany had mentioned, this was like, I think very shortly after the show had started, about episode 3 in an interview, he said, at one point in the show, there's an actor that I've been wanting to work with my whole life, and it's going to be Electric. I now believe he was being cheeky and he's just talking about himself. Because everyone was like, oh, who could it be? Could it be Patrick Stewart? Could it be Ian McKellen? Could it be this person? No, I think it's just cheeky British humor is all it is. So I have kind of predictions of what's going to actually happen in the next episode. I think it's going to be an even longer episode. And I sort of know some stuff about, because like White Vision, that's a thing from the comic books. So I think I kind of might know where they're going, but they might just be sort of just sort of doing a bit of a rope-a-dope with like nerds who have like a little bit of knowledge about the comic book. So I won't say too much because I still feel bad about like dropping the Agatha Harkness thing, even though it was maybe not that big of a whatever.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, I don't know. If anybody found out about that and was spoiled on our show, that'd be a big congratulations to us, I think. I think I'm with you there. It's a frustrating episode because, yeah, like you said, like you got 9 episodes, man. You can't waste an episode. Yeah, make it 10 or 13. It's so, I said it earlier. It's like they don't know how to tell a story outside of the traditional Marvel framework. So they chose this format and it feels like they didn't fully commit to it. Like there's no reason why they couldn't have told this story in the stylized sitcom fashion. And that, I think that goes for every episode that was technically outside of the Hex. I think they had a great opportunity there to, I don't know, to like they could tell the story, like they could do it in that format. And I don't know why they didn't go for it, you know? So that's frustrating to me. It's not a bad episode, but we knew all of this stuff, or at least 3/4 of this stuff we already knew. We were already privy to it. It wasn't necessary. So I think it's kind of a shame, but you know, again, I'm here for it. I'm looking forward to this week. I hope it's a good finale. I guess I'm disappointed that I assume we're not going to get a sitcom next week. I don't see how we could. You know,
I just hope they all end up in jail. That'd be great.
End up in jail, yeah. Well, that's where they belong. That'd be great. Yeah, so Harry, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, similar to you guys. Slightly disappointing. It was a wasted episode, mostly to me. I dug the beginning. I liked the stuff with Agnes. I liked how she wasn't just also like a maniacal, cackling bad person when she revealed herself to Wanda and they were going through the flashbacks. She was genuinely trying to figure out how Wanda's making this all work. Like, it felt genuine from Catherine Hahn's performance, so I was digging all of that. But from the flashbacks, we learned next to nothing much new, as you guys already talked about. So, and we already talked about that. I really feel that they're missing some more scenes between Wanda and Vision to really drive home a real punch for next week. I hope they can pull it off, but I'm worried. So, because the last few episodes, they haven't spent a lot of time together, and that's really disappointing for me. So, for a story about Wanda and Vision, and they're not interacting a lot now, and they didn't interact a lot in the movies, so there's not a lot that we can latch onto. It's disappointing. So, hopefully, they find a way to make it work. They got a good balance next week. Let's hope.
Yeah, no, agreed. Okay, well, I guess.
think them making Paprikash wasn't all the relationship storytelling you needed.
Or the references to him blatantly invading her privacy on multiple occasions.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, what a creep. He's just like walk into her room. Like, wow, I saw the door was open, so I'll just walk in like the wall. You know?
That was my favorite scene that was in Civil War, right?
Yeah,
that was my favorite scene of that movie. Okay, so that's the show, guys. We'll end it there, and we will be back on Friday for the finale of WandaVision. So thanks, guys, for doing this, and yeah, I guess we'll talk to you then.
All right, sounds good. See you guys.
See you later.
All right.